In 1974, I was an assistant camp director at a Boy Scout camp in upstate New York named Babcock Hovey. And it was there that I was introduced to the Hot One. That was an aerosol shaving cream that was self-heating, put out by Gillette. You'd spray it on your hand, and the shaving cream would go through what they called an exothermic chemical reaction and get really warm in your hand. I didn't know what it felt like on my face. I never used it on my face, but it came in handy for one of my jobs as assistant camp director, which was staff morale. And when your staff is mostly teenage and 20-something males who spend most of their waking hours walking around in khaki shorts and knee-high socks and being trustworthy, loyal, helpful, friendly, and so on, there's a lot of pent-up energy that has to be exercised here. And I personally believed that practical jokes was a really good way to deal with that, as long as they were properly designed and supervised. So I made a point of being present for all morale-based activities in the camp as quality control. We didn't mess with the boys, and we didn't mess with the volunteer leaders because we didn't have to. They took care of themselves. One troop that year, they found the blue squeeze pops make your tongue really blue, which doesn't sound like much until you remember that the year before was when they put out The Exorcist in theaters. And so boys were jumping out from behind walls and bushes with blue tongues and walking up to adult people and going, ah, ah, ah. We had to ask him to tone that one down when a couple of the Scoutmaster's wives called the camp director. He called me at 2 a.m. He said he couldn't sleep. What the hell's going on out there? Yeah, the boys were artists. They really were. But the Hot One was just a classic uptick for the sleeping person, shaving cream in the hand, tickle the nose routine. It just took it to another level. So we figured we would do it to Bob, the medical office director, and try it on him because he was a nurse student when normal life, and he was a really sound sleeper. And he also didn't like practical jokes, especially surprise ones. He said it was rude to intrude on another person's private time. It was like being in camp with Frank Burns from MASH, you know. He was our favorite target, you know. So one morning, 5 of us, 2 hours before Reveille, we snuck into the medical lodge, sneak into the medical, he never locked it. And we went in, and we went into his room, and he was lying on his right side, and his right arm was out of the covers. It was perfect. And I was the assistant camp director, so I stood back to just observe and referee. And the archery director actually put the shaving cream in the fingers of his right hand, and then one of the swimming instructors went over and tickled his nose a couple of times, and it finally worked, and he brought his right hand up, and he just touched the tip of his nose, just a little white stuff right there. And then he took his hand and went down and went into classic fetal position with his hands between his legs. And then he said, and then he shifted a bit, and he said, he said a lot of other things that I really can't pronounce here for the next several seconds. We didn't say anything. There was a lot of staring going on, actually. And finally, I resumed my director position and went, which means, you know, shut up and get out of here. And everybody left, and Bob didn't wake up. And once we were out of earshot, I turned around to all the guys and said, guys, nobody talks about this again, ever. Got it? And the youngest member of our staff said, why not? And I said, because it really isn't right to intrude on Bob's private time. I mean, this kind of you'll understand later. And as far as I know, nobody's ever talked about this prank before. until now. 46 years is past the statute of limitations. Thank you.